personally and professionally. Please welcome my guest, Rita Birdi, to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. So nice to
I'm
see
excited
you.
for you to be here as well. Thank you so much for saying yes and,
Absolutely.
and
I'm
taking
excited.
your busy schedule. So I do have a few questions, but before I do that, let the audience know. I want to know your why. We met at an event and in an inner circle, if you will, and I was so fascinated by you. I think your spirit and everything is grand. It's not every day that you meet someone at your stature, of your level of executive status, to where you're humbled. You know what I mean? And so before all of this, like, where were you and before the research and deciding to actually focus on women's health?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. Where was I? Well, I think doing what all women were doing. We were working our way up. We were in school, we were deciding what we were going to do. And this ties really well in the story about me because as we're going on in life, things are happening, things are accumulating. So, you know, I talk about this a lot, that I was actually my first client. It was all about me. And so, who I was before all of this is so important because that's where it all started. That's where things started accumulating, working hard, getting educated, going after degrees, taking care of family, participating in community, and just having those goals. And then the goals increased, and your participation in life increases, and um, over time, things happen, and that's where it brought me to where I was today. And I don't know if you want to jump right into where I am today, but my why is really about where I came from and how I didn't notice that as I was moving along in life, I wasn't noticing what I was sacrificing. I didn't notice what I was overlooking until it was almost too late.
Yeah. So I know as leaders in our organizations, we know, but outside of that, we're still the mother, the wife. We're trying, we're doing all wearing all of the hats and doing all of the things. And sometimes it's so hard for us to take care of ourselves. And you kind of like hit the nail on the head. We're so busy doing all the busy being busy, right? That's what I say. So where were you to where you said, you know what, I want to change myself first? What was that feeling and how did you start that process?
Yeah. So I think it starts somewhere. Um, there's always that moment where it really starts to accumulate. And for me, I think it was my years ago. My dad passed away, and then I started taking care of my mom, who became ill. And so I was caretaking. I was moving up the corporate ladder, doing very well. And then we relocated. So there was the change of, I had born and raised in one place, and then suddenly my mom and I moved. So there's a lot of change. And your body keeps track. You may not, but your body's keeping track while all of this is happening. And then I got married, and my mother-in-law was ill, and she had a women's cancer. So I was now also caretaking for her. I had my first daughter. A few years later, I had my second daughter, and it was just all accumulating, and you don't notice it. On paper, I looked fantastic, and when you would meet me, like, my energy output was great. I looked like I had it all, and I was again climbing up the corporate ladder, going to executive leadership. And it really, I think there's this moment where we can almost feel rock bottom is now happening. And that moment came for me, and I remember it vividly. I was in the kitchen. I just drove back from work. I was cooking, and my laptop was open on one side on the counter, and I could hear the emails coming in because, we, as much as we'd like work to end, when you're at that level, work doesn't really end. So my my laptop's dinging away. I'm trying to get dinner going. My kids are being kids. They're rambunctious. They're laughing. They're dropping things. They're being loud. And I'm in my head super overwhelmed because I'm already thinking, well, I haven't booked that appointment yet for that doctor, and I still have these things to do. And there's like this overwhelming surge. And I really remember all of this. And those big cast iron pots? So
Yes.
I had one of those, and my stove at the time was just a glass stove top. And I think it was a combination of overwhelm, anger, and miscalculation, but I slammed that pot down so hard on my stovetop, and glass went shattering everywhere. And I had tears rolling down my face. And I remember, like, my hand was on my head, and, rock bottom has set in. And I remember saying to myself, I can't keep doing this. I can't do this. And that's really when my personal journey started. As a clinical researcher, when I say I researched a solution, I researched a solution. Um, I was looking for something else. I knew that, I finally noticed, for example, that I would, sit in my pantry and emotionally eat. I was looking for solutions. I didn't realize what I was doing to myself. And I was in a state of weight gain, low energy, depression, and it was time for me to start taking care of myself. And that's really when my journey started.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that, because I think that's what women really need to hear, and sometimes we don't allow ourselves to understand it's okay to be in that vulnerable state, because we've all been there where it happened to you in your closet. I think it happened to me. I mean, in your kitchen. I think it happened for me. I think I was in the bathroom or the shower or the closet or something to that effect, and you get to that point to where you're like, what's really happening? Like, I can't do this anymore. You feel hopeless because, like what you said, you've gone through the loss. You're a caretaker, the relocating, everything starts to basically weigh you down, and you're like, who is there for me? How can I find the time to actually be there for myself? And of course, we can't take time off. We have kids. There's no such thing as time out. Like, we just, what does that look like? And so you said you basically researched your way to finding the solution for yourself. And what did you find? How did that start?
Yeah. So, you touched upon a point there where no one's coming to help you. And you'll hear that a lot, but no one's coming to help you. And you need to invest in yourself. And
Hmm.
and that comes in many forms, right? That comes in physical, emotional, spiritual. You need to start investing in yourself. And I realize that as much as women are always helping everyone else, and continuing to take on things, there's no one really doing that for them. So my research was really about, um, finding something that was going to be sustainable and lifelong. Um, in the 26 years that I was working in drug development and clinical research, I did see things. And when you look at the data with a fresh set of eyes, you start to see that people are getting sicker. There's more prescription use. You also see that the age of people that are getting sick are younger. And I also saw an alarming high number and an increase in the number of women that were getting ill. And my work was focused in oncology, so cancer studies, and endocrinology, diabetes. And it's just, when I look back, I didn't really realize it until I looked at the data from a holistic point of view that things aren't really working. So you look at the diet industry, for example, it's so targeted to women. It's a $1 billion industry. Why? Because diets don't work. And it's not that the people are failing. It's not these women who are failing these diets. It's the diets that are failing you. And so knowing all of that, I further researched and looked for something that felt scientifically right. I am scientifically inclined. It's got to logically make sense, but I'm also very emotional and spiritual. So it needed to make sense holistically. And so what I discovered was really about our metabolism. And that's as I looked further into metabolism, which is really all, in a nutshell, it's all our biochemical processes working together the way they're supposed to. I discovered what is called nutritional anthropology. And basically, when we look at our genetics has not changed in the last million years. It's pretty much the same because we don't evolve that fast. The world around us is evolving super fast. You know, when we look at food industry, pharmaceutical industry, our lifestyle, our stress, that's moving super fast. But genetically, we are the same. And what's happened is, as a result, because we're trying to cope with all of this, we are no longer living. And if I take that one step further, we are no longer eating the way humans were meant to eat. And as a result, our metabolism is totally destroyed. We are actually supposed to be doing what in anthropology are food seasons. We are supposed to not eat the way we're eating constantly. We're supposed to have what I like to call food holidays. We're supposed to take a break from certain foods. We're supposed to allow our body to replenish. And when you look at, well, what does that mean really? Like that sounds very confusing. That just means as our ancestors ate, what did they experience? They didn't experience the grocery stores. They experienced nature feeding them. So whatever nature gave them, that's what they lived off. So there was a hunting season. There was a season of roots and vegetables. There was a season of more plants and vegetation. And then there was what we would call a winter food season, fasting. And so what's happened is when you actually return to the way humans were supposed to eat, you end up fixing your metabolism. And when
Mm.
I researched that, that just made 100%, even more sense to me. And it pulled in all the data that I had been seeing with people going through drug trials or not being able to metabolize medicine. Like there's a whole scientific premise to it, but the beauty of it is that it takes you back to where you're supposed to be.
Mhm.
And one great example is when you look at animals in the wild,
Mhm.
they can live, you can take, for example, an elephant will live anywhere to 25 to 30 years. And when you take that elephant and put them in the zoo, they live about 10 to 12 years.
Because they're
The
confined.
reason, yeah, the reason being that the zoo thinks, well, we're giving them all the food they need all the time. And they think they're doing the right thing. But in really what's happening is that that poor elephant doesn't live that way. That elephant in the wild lives off of what nature's been giving them. And that's how their health is sustainable because they're going through the different metabolic seasons. So that's really what nutritional anthropology is. And when I discovered that, that was just for me was incredible. I then, went on to look for people who were actually well versed in that and were actually um, experienced in applying nutritional anthropology. And one of the best programs I found is by a founder called Eric Edmeades, and his program is called WildFit, which is appropriately named, and it's really about returning people to the way they're supposed to be.
I'm glad you said that. And I want to touch on the fasting piece. So how often do you, because that's the first thing people think, oh, I need to go to, intermittent fasting or just fasting in general. And I just really came off a spiritual fast, right? But how often would you say that you would even recommend fasting? Even though I heard you say there's cycles to this thing, right? There's certain times of the seasons and certain seasons that we should actually be listening to the body. But how often do you actually recommend if they're not in line and we're just fasting, you know, 2 times a month, once a month? Like, what does that look like? What would you say?
Yeah, so fasting, there's so many kinds. And you're going to, when you're out there, if you put the word in fasting and
You
Google
got the
it, you're
Daniel
going to get
fast. Yeah, yeah.
it. There's so much. So there's a couple of things. You'll hear about intermittent fasting, which, is probably the safest, and it's a good first type of fasting that you do. You need to take into consideration where your body is nutritionally right now. So, as a society, we tend to be overfed but undernourished. And that's because we're not eating the right foods. So, when you're eating, what are you eating? Are you actually eating nutritious food that's actually going to fuel your body? If you're eating poorly, non-functional foods that don't have much nutrition, when you go and fast, it's going to be a really nasty experience. It's just so much harder. And that's because our body really wants nutrition. Our body wants to heal. And when we eat, we're not eating for today. We're actually eating for about 3 to 4 days down the road. That's how you're
Mm,
supposed to be eating. So when you're eating good, nutritious food, you're actually storing in the right places, and you're actually accumulating enough energy to sustain you for the next 2 to 3 to 4 days, depending on what you're eating and how good your metabolism is. And then when you eat again, you're eating for future. When you're doing everything right and your body's really optimized,
mhm.
if you fast from that state, fasting can be really wonderful, and you reap the rewards of fasting much faster. To answer your question, that's one thing that you really need to take into consideration. Like, where is your body right now? So if you're not that, your meals aren't that nutritious, I would say maybe put off fasting to the side and start getting in the good stuff. If you feel like, okay, I'm ready to fast, I want to try this out, intermittent fasting is a little bit easier. And what that looks like in the easiest form is basically you have your last meal, you go to bed. And so hopefully you're sleeping anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. You wake up and then you don't have a breakfast. So you'll eat maybe 12 hours later. So you have your last meal and you can eat 12 hours later.
Mhm.
And so you'll hear things like 16-8 or 12. And um, I always say focus on the present moment and do your best at that time. So if you go to bed and then you're good the next morning until, let's say, 11 p.m., then that'll be your fasting window. If you can repeat it, then repeat it for at least a week. See how you feel. So it's not as much about the numbers, which are important too, like if you're, doing a glucose monitor or something, but it's really about seeing how you feel, because you want to do something, and if it's fasting, you want to do it consistently, but you want it as easy as possible so that you actually stick to it. That's
Mhm.
where the behavior change dynamics piece comes in. Anything that's so hard or anything that's confusing, you're not going to repeat it. You're not going to do it. And that's the other reason diets fail, because if you're using willpower constantly, willpower is great to get you started, but
Right.
it's not sustainable. So, doing that kind of fast, seeing, okay, like I'm gonna, my target is tomorrow after I've had my last meal, I'll go to bed and I won't eat till 11. Okay, I did day one, awesome. Let's do day two. One day at a time. Okay, great. If you can get through 5 days, see how you feel. How did that process feel? And then people do a variety of fasting, where they'll intermittent fast for the week. They'll go into the weekend, and then maybe they'll decide, okay, I'm going to do 5 days of intermittent fasting once every month. If you can live then in an intermittent fasting state and you feel good, you're finding your energy is there, your sleep has adjusted, then you can actually live like that. Um, with that, I always say variety is important. So, you'd want to get to a point where maybe after a month, you'll say, take a break for the week, see how you feel, and then revisit. The other pieces that we really need to remember is that you need to know where you are in your state and stage of life. So we look at women. Interesting that in 2025, there are going to be almost a billion, so 1 billion women in menopause. So you look at, around that, that's a lot of women who are over 40, perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal. So hormones are fluctuating. Um, there's there's so much in there alone in that group of women that you need to then look at. How is fasting going to benefit you? Is it the right fasting for you? Intermittent fasting is still probably the easiest, safest one to do. But then, when you want to get really into a fasting state, you can start doing full day fasts, up to 3 to 5 day fasts. But I would always recommend that you either do that with a coach, or have a group, have an accountability partner, have a group of people, make sure there's someone there when it's going to be your first 3 to 5 day fast, that there's someone there that, you're dialing in with someone or online, or, if you're under the care of a doctor, let them know. um, those kind of fasts can impact you negatively if you have a lot of potentially unknown conditions and you're somewhere along that hormonal cycle.
So yeah, I'm glad you said that. Because my whole thing is, while I was actually, because I was doing a spiritual fast, and I'm looking, seeking something that, for God to actually give me some clarity on. And in that moment as well, afterwards, he's also has told me that I need to stop eating meat. So, so I'm like, okay, are you sure this is what you want me to do? But yeah, I mean, because I'm listening to my body and I'm like, okay, something's just off. And again, I'm over 40, and it's just like wanting to do more for myself, and the energy levels is not the way they used to be. And so, and I've gained a lot of weight, so I know it's like either stress or something else. I was like, something else is going on, so it's time for a, I can say, drastic change, but it's definitely a change. So yeah, I'm going to take that. I don't know what that looks like, and I'm like, I don't know how long, but I want to try it. And so it was something that was, it came to me. So just being obedient, number one, I need to do it. But I'm like, where do I start? I'm like, no meat. I'm not big on meat anyway, and here lately I haven't been craving it. It's like something about it. It doesn't seem, it's not as good as it used to be back in the day. So my body's saying there's something wrong, and I'm like, I don't want to eat it. And so, like, when someone takes drastic changes to where they're like they want to cut out meat, I'm not saying I want to be just vegan and vegetarian. I just want to make sure that I'm listening and being obedient to the word, but also my body. um do you say, oh, just start off with just raw fruits and vegetables and just making sure we start there? Because I'm really like, I don't want to be all over the place when I go to the grocery store. I'm like, I'm picking up all of these things, and next thing I know, I can't eat everything because it's gone bad, or I don't know how to fix something. So should I just start with one small, maybe a wrap or a fruit bowl? Like, where do you start? So considering that you have this program, and we're going to get into that, what you offer and everything that you do, where do I start? Even as a leader, I'm building a business. I travel. I'm speaking a lot, and so I'm like, how do I sustain that and start that process successfully?
Yeah. So there's a lot of layers to that, but uh the first thing. So
Hmm.
it's our genetics again, our fight. or flight mechanism is still fully active. So you talked about stress there and gaining weight. There's an absolutely direct link to that. And that's mostly cortisol. And so as women, we put on a lot of weight. We get a lot of belly fat. We get the muffin, especially because when we're stressed, our fight or flight mechanism from way back is still fully active. So, in the past thousands of years ago, it was in a line around the corner. And now, and we would be like, oh my God, and the cortisol would shoot up. Now it's like, oh my God, my visa bill is here. And the cortisol comes in and it shoots up, and you're just having the same response, lion visa, same response. And we have a lot of cortisol, which is good for you, but it hangs out and it's not supposed to hang out. And because it's hanging out, its function is to basically build up fat, keep you to survive, because you don't know when your next meal may come, or if you're in hiding, when will you eat? So that whole survival mechanism is terrible. It saved us before, but it doesn't work for us now. But it stores everything into fat. And so the reason I talk about that is because you want to always give your body the message that it is safe. You always want to be telling your body, we're safe, we're okay. So all, adrenaline, cortisol, all of that can disappear. Part of contributing to that is breathing. So I would tell you, Latasha, your first goal is to start breathing, not the shallow breathing that we all tend to do, but really deep, deep breathing.
Yeah.
So, you want to tag this on with something else you do to make it easier. Create that habit. So what I tell people is, in the morning when you wake up, just before you get out of bed, you can do 5 deep, deep breaths. And there's lots of different types of breathing. You'll hear like Wim Hof, you'll hear about box breathing. Keep it simple. And I tell you, you breathe in through your nose very deeply, and when you breathe in through your nose, you make sure you put your hand on your belly. You want your belly to rise. So you want the air to come all the way in through your diaphragm into your belly and have your belly rise. And then you hold that breath 3 to 5 seconds, and then you push it out through your mouth. And then with your hand on your belly goes in. So, you're pushing that, you're not really pushing your belly, but it goes in, and then you imagine the air is coming out that way. Do 5 of those in the morning. And a lot of my clients, also very spiritually inclined, and then they'll, they'll either meditate or they do their prayers. And I think having that whole habit formed in the morning is so beautiful. And it doesn't have to be very long. We do always say, I don't have time. Before you get out of bed, do some deep breathing and let your body know I'm safe. And if you can like put your hand on your heart and just sit there with your eyes closed, and just, if you have a mantra or a prayer, whatever it is, just say, we're okay. We're safe. And I love you. Like just gratitude, and gratitude for being alive. And it can be gratitude for the cup of coffee that you're going to have, or gratitude for your children, whatever it is. Gratitude is an extremely powerful energy. And doing that in the morning, cortisol level. So there's a biochemical response to having a spiritual state. And I love that. I love that connectivity. And it's scientifically proven. You can do, blood tests that show the difference between high stressed people versus people who are, meditating or pray often or can get to a state of calmness quickly. So, that would be your first step, to make sure your morning routine has that deep, deep breathing, not the shallow breathing we do. Repeating that in the evening or at night before you go to bed. Another set of deep breathing. And that's because how you go to sleep is how you wake up. So don't go to sleep, like check my messages. And no, your bedtime routine is so important. You'll also find you get a deeper sleep. When you start to get the breathing going on a consistent basis, your breathing is going to also be deeper. Your sleep is going to be deeper. When you sleep deeper, you actually lose weight. This has been proven as well. So the better quality sleep you have, the less weight you will put on. And there's a
Mm.
lot of good stuff that happens while you're sleeping. If you can, have a good number of hours over time consistently, there's all these neurotransmitters and growth factor hormones that you create during sleep that are healing. They wake up your immune system. Again, it just leads to better health. And when you have better health, the side effect is weight loss. Because weight gain is only survival. We need fat. Fat is good for us, but it's when it hangs around for a long time and, 10, 15, 20 years, you need to let go of that, but it's important. So it's just survival. That's all it is. And the fat literally wants to leave your body. So breathing and then hydration. I don't know if we all drink enough water. I'm sure a lot of our parents have been like, drink the 8 glasses of water. And there was a truth behind that. We are so dehydrated. A lot of our food is void of water. Just getting water back into our body. And, so drinking consistently throughout the day, water, those two things will have a huge impact. And as far as the food, so you asked about the food specifically, get in the good stuff. Get in cruciferous, leafy green vegetables. So like there's kale, there's spinach. Then you look at things like broccoli. And be adventurous. Sometimes you're like, I've never tried that green thing. And add that variety. There's actually a lot out there. We just don't realize it, but getting in a lot of dark green is really powerful. And so even if you did those three things for like the first 2 weeks, I guarantee you're going to see dramatic transformation.
Yeah, I totally, I don't have a problem with green eating or vegetables. That is definitely my a go-to food for me anyway. But to hear you say that, I'm like, oh, it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be as challenging for me. It's just the mindset shift. It's just like, okay, I've decided to do this now. Just be consistent. I heard you say that as well. Just being consistent in the decisions that we make for the healthy lifestyle change. So, um what you found is that there are some problems within corporate executives and corporations not taking care of themselves and being healthy. And so I wanted to ask you before I got that. So did you gain weight, or considering that you were so frustrated and like fed up and all that? Because I'm looking at you and I'm like, I don't see a weight problem, but I didn't know you before now. So were you unhealthy in the body or just unhealthy in the mind?
Oh, I lost 27 pounds
Okay.
after
Yes.
I had a lot of survival fat.
Okay. Okay. I
Um,
meant to ask you that when you said it because I was like, well, so what was the result? Like, because where were you then as far as
yeah,
the health piece of it to say, hey, I needed to change? So the result was you lost 20 pounds.
yeah. So it was over 20 pounds. But there was even more than that. It was, and I tell people like weight loss is just a side effect. You don't focus on the weight. You don't focus on the number on the scale. You have to look at everything else first. And I have clients on the other end of the spectrum. They need to put on weight. You can
Mhm.
do the same, you can do the same thing, the same work. Once you fix your metabolism, the person who that poor skinny soul who wants to put on muscle and wants to put on some shape, she's also going to benefit. So that's the beauty of this. It's not about weight loss. It's not about gaining healthy weight or muscle mass. It's actually getting your body optimized to work the way it's supposed to.
Okay. So how was it a challenge to say, hey, I want to focus on executives or just leadership in general? Like how did you start that? Where did you start with that? When you identify, did they come to you or did you like, hey, I have this thing? What does that look like?
Yeah, so you know what? I feel so blessed. It's such a privilege to work with these women. When I went through my own journey, the women around me saw. So,
Mm.
and they became my next very first actual clients. So, and these were executive women. They were women from middle management and up, all the way to C-suite, and just people I was interacting with. If they didn't see me for a week or two, they'd be like, "Wow, okay, what's happened? What are you doing?" And as I moved into a people leader role as well, I found that my teams were talking more and more about, well, this is happening at home and I can't handle this and I'm overwhelmed emotionally. And as things were coming up, I realized, the foundation of all of this is their health. If we don't have our health, we cannot cope. And I recently put a post up in LinkedIn about the reaction gap. And there's a direct link between when we are healthy physically, we are healthy mentally, we improve our emotional health. We get rid of all that traffic inside our body, everything's circulating better, then we are better connected inside. And then what happens? We're naturally in more control. We become better gatekeepers of what we're letting in to irritate us, and we connect better with the world around us. We actually connect better and build better relationships around us. And in leadership and team building and executive management, the first thing is about how are you building your teams? What kind of relationships are you building? What kind of decisions are you making? How are you interacting with people? Do you have the ability to have empathy? Can you be kind? Can you can you pause and reflect, or are you bringing all your own grief and stress and it's just exploding onto everybody around you?
Right.
It's very dramatic then when you can improve all those aspects. You know, Leadership and business, entrepreneurship, corporate, what is it? It's our interactions with people.
Hmm.
At the foundation of it all, it's how do we interact with people? That'll determine our success or lead to, being not so successful.
Right. And that goes to my saying all the way. You have to be able to lead yourself before you can lead others. You have to be able to be your very best self before you can show up in the right positioning for your team. So let's talk about, what is the name of your program?
Oh, it's the female fuel formula.
Female Field
And
Formula.
it's the female fuel formula. So the funny thing about that name is way back, I was talking to my daughters, and so I credit them. They're like, well, mommy, it's like, you're female and you need fuel. And then my other daughter was like, well, you work with formulas. And so it just came from there. But it's a cute name, but it's it's I think it says what we absolutely need.
Yeah.
We need the right fuel. And something, if you don't mind me throwing in, is that as women, um, I work in the healthcare system, but women were only included in clinical trials in 1993. And
Mm.
so, medicine, it's not where it should be in regards to women. And yet women are, we're climbing the corporate ladder. We're doing everything successfully, but we don't really have the pharmaceutical or the medical foundation. It's getting better, but it's not quite there. And so it is so important that women invest in themselves. And you know, I that's why I say it's such a privilege. I'm so blessed to work with these rock star women who are, going out there achieving everything. Um, but to serve them, to get them to a place where they're actually, doing everything they want to do, and they have the energy now to dream even bigger without sacrificing their health. That's really, that's the key to everything.
I love it. I love it. So how long have you been doing this, on this journey? Exactly.
So this I've been seeing clients for a little over 4 years now,
Okay. And
and
you're
officially in an official capacity. Because when I first started, it was my office, and then it was the global team, and that's when I realized I love doing this.
yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. So your results so far, what has been the results and what have your I want to say mentees or clients, what are they saying so far about, your program?
Oh, those are the types of emails and WhatsApp messages I absolutely love getting. I think the biggest one are the type 2 diabetes clients, and pre-diabetic. They are, you're not supposed to say it, but they're coming off their medication. And, I I think it's growing there now that people with diabetes um, are not really being informed. I think it's happening, but they're not being informed that you, in fact, don't have to go onto medication or stay on your medication. It doesn't
Mm.
have to be your lifestyle. And so I've had multiple clients just come off of their medication. They're no longer type 2 diabetic. So they're what you would call post-diabetic. So that's a huge transformation because in the US, if you look at the cost of medication alone for diabetes and all the other extra conditions that occur, it's a very expensive condition to have, and it impacts your life negatively, very, very negatively. So that's one of the biggest transformations. I've also worked with whole families. So um, there's been times when there's that fear where your aunt was diagnosed with cancer or your dad is diagnosed with cancer, like, and that fear starts to well up. Am I going to get it next? Or my labs are not very good. I went to the doctor and the lab results are really scary, and I'm heading into a very toxic direction. And so lab results after 3 months, just these people are so proud of themselves. These women have invested in their own health, and um, the transformation is actually beyond then, right? They lose the weight. Their labs look wonderful. They feel more certain. They understand their body. I joke that people know, they'll know their makeup kit or their car better than they know their own body, because we
Mhm.
know so little about our own body. But they get this new love for their body. They get this new knowledge about, well, this is what works for me. This is what these are my tools now for lifelong, not just like yo-yo dieting. And so they come away with so many other benefits. I had one woman who, this sounds terrible, but she's supposed to get married. She did the program and she then called off the wedding. And I thought, oh no, what
What?
happened? She said, no, I deserve better. She had this renewed confidence that she said, I now can see with clarity. And I don't have this brain fog, or that I need to be with a certain type of person because I have lack, right? She was no longer coming from a place of lack. And so she said, no, this is not what I want. So it was great for her. We were a bit worried, but it was great for her. So
I
so
don't know
there's that.
how did the man feel about that, but okay, yeah. It's great.
I know. But yeah, the transformation is beyond weight. And something I really like saying, it's like and I should name it or coin this term, but it's like the 4M process. And what I mean by that is you improve your metabolism, and as a result, you improve your methylation. And methylation is how your body takes in what you're giving it. And then you improve your mitochondrial health. And mitochondrial health is basically your energy centers, your battery. So you improve your metabolism, you improve your methylation, you improve your mitochondrial health, and you know what happens next? You improve your manifestation. So
Mm.
you get such a clarity and you no longer have that traffic in your body, and there's such good circulation that, as I mentioned earlier, your interconnections are really fluid, everything's flowing, you connect better to the outside world. And you know what happens then? For those who are inclined, you actually connect better to, whether it's God for you, whether it's universe, whether it's source energy, whatever it is, you get that clarity throughout. And we've seen that transformation. I would even say that for me, achieving my goals, there are things that have happened that for me, I would say that was manifestation. So yeah, the 4M process.
The 4M process. That's a framework right there, girl. We could talk about that
I
after
know.
this. We'll talk
I'll
about
send
that.
you the royalty.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. So the female feel formula. I love it. I love it. How long is the program?
It's 90 days.
Okay.
And the reason for that, it's 90 days or 13 weeks, whatever sounds better for you. Um, it includes the behavior change dynamics. It's so important to have a journey on a program where you are doing things at a very easy pace, where it's doable, where it's not about willpower. So we start with getting in the good stuff, and that's all it is, getting in the good stuff. Because the magic with that is when you start getting in the good stuff, your cravings change, your taste buds change, your body starts sending you different messages. You might be like, but we always eat that, apple pie because we always pass that place and we have the apple pie. But what happens is when you start getting in the good stuff that your body actually wants, your body will say, nah, I don't need that. And you'll be like, what? And you're literally having a dialogue with your body saying, but we always do that. So you end up breaking patterns that you otherwise would not have been able to break because it would be willpower. And so the first part of the program is just getting in a lot of good stuff. And then the second part is about the detoxification. So we talked about, things have accumulated over the years. It could be 5, 10, 15 years. Post-COVID, COVID weight, people talked about it, becoming so incredibly sedentary. So that detox phase allows you to finally get rid of, the fat and broken protein, dead bacteria, finally start getting rid of that.
Yeah.
Um, the last part are to give you the tools so that you can do this on your own for the rest of your life. So
Hmm.
that, when you go on that cruise and you're like, well, I want to drink that wine and I want to have that dessert. And I really consciously want to have all of that. Have it. It's about food freedom. It's not about willpower. After the program's done and if you're no longer with the community and getting onto the live calls, you don't want to be in a place where you're like, oh, I'm all on my own now. What do I do? Or crisis happens. You lose your job, or, sadly someone passes away and you're in like crisis mode and you can't handle it and you start self-soothing with other things. You don't want to be in a position where you're like, what do I do? So the last half of the program is to give you the tools so that you know how to go on a cruise and you can go party and have fun with the girls and do whatever you want to do. But then when you're back home, or you're trying to handle your crisis, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And so that you'll have the tools on, okay, this is what I need to do at this time. This is what I need to consciously eat. And it's super powerful.
I love that. I'm learning so much today. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited I have you today. So where can the listeners find you?
So I run a very high touch program. So I love meeting everyone just to see that we're a good fit for each other. Um, And so I do, I always say, like, you can find me everywhere pretty much. So you can go to LinkedIn and find me on Rita Birdi. You can go to ritabirdi.com. And you can also, what I wanted to do for you here is if you email me at ritabirdi.com, and if anyone types in podcast or Latasha, what I want to give everyone is a meditation. It's a very powerful, I like to call it an executive meditation, as well as a document, and it's called the 65 Names of Sugar. And if you print this out and you throw it in your purse and you take it when you're grocery shopping, it will totally transform your grocery shopping experience, because on it you will be surprised how many types of sugar under different names are actually in the food that you're eating. And if you were just, another step, when we talked about the breathing in the water and getting in the good green stuff, this would be the next step. That if you just took a little bit of extra time at the grocery store and you looked at the ingredients, not at the nutritional label. The nutritional label is marketing, but you look at the ingredients to see what's actually in that food. The 65 names of sugar will be a really awesome guide to show you how much sugar is actually sitting in that box of food or whatever it is, so that you could make an informed choice and say, well, let me find something better. And if you did that, you would also see your health will start changing immediately.
Well, I'm so excited. So she's giving us gems, and not only that, she's giving you a discounted a freebie. Let me say it like that. I don't like using the discount, but a freebie. All you have to use is the word, email her discount, I'm sorry, podcast or my name,
Podcast or Latasha, yeah,
or
at,
Latasha,
at
and
Rita at ritabirdi.com.
And so I want you guys to get tapped into what she shared today. I wanted to have this podcast and this conversation because wealth and health and wellness is very important, especially if you're over 40. Our bodies are doing some major shifts and major changes, and we're doing so much these days. It's like this microwavable lifestyle that we're in. And if you're over 40, this is not what we're used to. We weren't born into this type of lifestyle. So it's time for us to get tapped in, especially as women, as leaders in our businesses. We do all of the things for all of our bosses and all of our corporations and organizations, but we have to start putting ourselves first. And so I want you to take the time to breathe and tell your body it's safe, is what she said today. And I love it, love it, love it. And I thank you for saying yes. This has been another great episode of the Slight Ed Experience podcast, where successors lead you through education and determination. I am your host, Latasha, and you guys have a great one.